Hey everyone, it's Justin with APG, and I am so excited to welcome Scott Cook to our podcast. And Scott is a UX expert, marketing expert, and an expert of many other things. And he's here to talk with us about anticipated 2025 trends in UX. So, Scott, welcome.
Excited to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for being here. Would you go ahead and introduce yourselves? Tell us about you, your career, and what all you enjoy doing in the UX field.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Scott Cook, and I've been in the kind of tech world, I guess, for going on the better part of 20 years, if not more than that. I kind of got my start as a web designer back in the day, and I kind of evolved from there into owning my own agency, my own creative agency here based in Atlanta. And at this point in my career, I'm full-time consulting, doing a lot of just UX centric project work for all manner of kind of end experiences, from things like wearables to, you know, more standard websites to app interfaces, to sports betting platforms and things like that. It's kind of all over the map. So
Oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Well, as we start talking about trends that we anticipate in the upcoming year, I think everyone would agree one of the best ways to predict the future is to learn from the past. So let's start there, Scott. What are some of the trends that you have seen in the past several years that you think will absolutely continue into 2025?
Sure. So one thing that immediately comes to mind is having a dark mode capability, whether it's a website, whether it's an app, more of a native app experience. Um, just giving the user that option to have a dark mode. I think that's going to continue to become an even more and more standard feature in many applications, especially in light of a lot of the data that has come out recently, or in recent years, about eye strain, and some of the effects that bright white interfaces have on us, kind of, just from a fatigue standpoint, a cognitive fatigue standpoint. So I think
Right.
that's one thing that's going to persist and even become more and more of a standard thing. This hasn't been super standard, but it has been a thing for a while, and I think voice user interfaces. Um, I think that's going to continue and grow, and definitely touches on some other things we'll probably talk about. And and then beyond that, I think just empathy-driven experiences that really try to uh, be inclusive of the kind of all people with all kinds of challenges, whether they be visual, auditory, different ways to input data, other than a keyboard and things like that. So I think the kind of accessible focus is only going to continue and increase as well.
Man, I love all three of those. I think about empathy, taking that from the top, right? That's one of APG's core values. Empathy and stewardship are our two core values. And it's really important for me as the leader of a technology company that my designers, engineers, product owners, everyone really has that sense of empathy and walking a mile in the shoes of whoever we're designing and building for. So I think that's a very, very key one. I'm excited to hear that you think that voice is going to continue forward. I've always had a fascination, especially since those early Alexa devices came out, with what you can do from a voice interaction perspective. And I think that the infusion and improvements in AI are only making those experiences better day over day, week over week. At least I'm finding that in my own usage of Siri, Alexa, and other similar devices. And then that last part, I love that you brought up something that so many of us take for granted in terms of light mode, dark mode. It can be as simple as a user preference. I err towards more of a dark mode in my car, in my desktop computer, and office, but it's actually a practical need, especially when you think about industrial uses, right? So if you're out in the field working in the outdoors at night, you're going to need a dark mode, right? A bright screen could actually be quite dangerous. So it's so cool to be thinking about those things and walking a mile in the user's shoes to understand what's going to work best for them, for sure. What would you say, Scott, are some of the trends that maybe have been less prominent in past years, but we should really start ramping up on and getting ready for this year?
Well, I think that I think voice for sure. Voice interactions, voice voice input. I think is huge. There's a lot of talk about. I think it's kind of unanimous that things are moving in more of a wearables direction, whether that be Meta's glasses and wrist wearables, things like that. And when you couple that with how these devices are going to be driven by AI agents, uh, I think that it's just inevitable that it's going to leverage a lot of voice interaction, a lot of kind of conversational interacting. So, you can picture yourself driving down the road with, you know, smart glasses on, and obviously you're not going to want a lot of visual data, to have to react to in that kind of scenario. So it only makes sense that voice is going to be kind of the standard, I think, of kind of interaction in the future as we see this emerging wearables market and tech.
So for any of our Star Trek Trekkies who might be listening or watching, do you think we're nudging in that direction, right? Where they could simply talk to the computer and it would complete a task, execute a task, put data on a screen based upon what you've said as well.
100%. And I think it's already happened. And I think it's going to just become even more and more the norm, where you pull open your laptop and you've just got something like ChatGPT, the native desktop app has the voice capability, and just leaving that open as your kind of assistant throughout the day, which I know many people do. I do it from time to time, and just have that kind of conversational agent. Kind of uh, scenario just ever present. I just think it's going to be a ubiquitous thing, as agents do more and more, especially of the mundane tasks, and kind of help us do our day-to-day work. We're going to be talking more. It's going to really kind of liberate us from having to, click clack just constantly, and I think there's a attentional fragmentation that's going to. I think there will be a cognitive load reduction, I think, by being able to kind of stay in the zone with what I'm working on, but just voice a question, a thought, um, and have that kind of conversation, in these
It, ta-
experiences.
it takes me back to college thinking about group projects when you could either be paired up with someone on a group project that was a real hard worker and would get things done, or you could have that person who was completely absent and it ended up being a solo project. This is like having the perfect project partner at your side throughout the workday to really help you think through things. And it's not that it's necessarily doing the work for you, but it's really helping you do your best work, is how I see it.
Absolutely. It's a collaborative assistant. At least it's that way now. And I think that as the technology improves, as these agents improve, it's going to fill that gap of, like, for example, many people are working obviously remote and solo in their home offices and home studios. And while an AI agent isn't, a full replacement for having other collaborative partners in an office setting, it maybe to a small extent kind of fills that gap, or satisfies that need a little bit. So
Oh, I think about that for sure. One of our clients at APG in the past was a home healthcare company, and their nurses were deployed out in the field to take care of people who were homebound. And you think about that prospect to what you were saying, if they had a wearable or even simply on their smartphone, had someone else, and I say this someone else may be virtual, an AI agent, that they could ask for treatment suggestions or next step suggestions for unique cases and serving those patients. My goodness, I mean, the use cases go on and on of where that makes a lot of sense. But Scott, so many people equate UX to pictures and designs and making things pretty. UX is so much more than that, right? It's about designing the experience, whether it's audible or visual.
100% it is. It really is that umbrella of everything we kind of interact with in our day-to-day experiences to do the things that we need to do. There are very few things you can encounter in your day-to-day that doesn't involve user experience in some uh, some kind of interface, some kind of, something that you're having to interact with, whether it's the oven in your kitchen, the air fryer, the just you name it, your smart thermostat. Um, so while those things do often involve visuals, there's also placement of buttons. There's size of input, elements. There's which side they're placed on. Um, and more and more, the developers and designers of these interfaces have to think through what's going to accommodate, you know, everybody who has to use these things.
Completely agree. Well, Scott, let's put the crystal ball out there and start really thinking ahead, right? So, what are some of the brand new trends that you're in tune with that you really think that UX and product folks need to prepare for in 2025 and beyond?
Now, so people who are in our shoes, who are actually developing and designing these experiences, there are obviously the things that will carry through that have been going on, having just a posture of empathy, right? And thinking about all kinds of users. But new ways we have to think are in terms of, well, it's beating a dead horse, I know, but AI powered experiences, dynamic and personalized experiences. So, things from, uh, the things that adapt to the individual, I guess that you would say, that are highly personalized. So I think that what we're gonna see a lot more of building and designing and thinking about experiences in a way that aren't just for a large group or swath of people, but that from the very get-go, from the very first interaction with by the user, they are finding out who that user is, what that user's motivations are, what their
Yes.
desires are, what their challenges are, and that in real time, that experience is going to customize and serve up at least parts of that experience that are very much tailored to that individual user rather than just someone who speaks English instead of Swahili, right? So I
Right.
think
That's right.
getting more and more individualized, and we as designers and developers have to think in terms of, okay, well, what do I need to build into this visual interface that I may be working on that I know is going to need to be adaptable and change and a chameleon based on. So I think that means that there are a lot of things that aren't going to be so fixed anymore
Yes.
in terms of interfaces. So.
I think that makes a lot of sense. That a very common user journey is beginning, middle, and end. And when I think about what AI can do in terms of tailoring content, in terms of synthesizing very complex data, and then making it highly personal to you, to me, to everyone, we really have to design those experiences in terms of what triggers this event. How do we consume what AI has come up with in a meaningful way? I have a family member who has a very, very rare form of cancer right now. And I know that her doctors are evaluating all of these different treatment plans and medications and combinations of things. And they're able to do that so much better now than they could even 3 or 5 years ago. But it's incumbent on us as product designers to make sure that, all right, that science is great and that analysis is great. How do we serve that back to the physicians? How do we serve that back to the patients? And that's just a healthcare example, but take that into just about anything else: manufacturing, banking, recruiting. Just pick an industry. There's all of those opportunities to do things at a scale we never could do before. But as designers, we really have to bring it back and make sure that it's consumable and actionable.
So well said. Yeah, absolutely. And learning is another one, right? Like how to tail. I think we're going to see, rather than it be an actual human who has done a course on something. I think that you're gonna have courses that are probably going to be, AI avatars that after you've input a certain amount of information or data, they're they're very much tailored for what your learning style, your bent, your that kind of thing. So yeah, healthcare. I don't think there's going to be a vertical that's untouched by this kind of personalized aspect of user experience that we're talking about.
I agree with you. Well, I don't know about you, Scott, but for 2025, it feels like we need to be on our toes. We need to be informed. We need to be educated and continue to have empathy for the users that we're designing for, and stay abreast of all of these new technology advancements, and not just read about them in casual articles, but really immerse ourselves in it. I can't thank you enough, Scott, for joining us on the podcast today. Any final thoughts as we head into this new year?
So many thoughts, but that would probably be another two podcasts. So
Let's do it.
it's count me in, count me in. I could talk about this stuff all day. It's fascinating and exciting and a little scary. But the kind of word that keeps coming to my mind is adaptability. And I think that's relevant for those of us who are designing and developing these experiences, but also for just our race, right? Adaptability, because things are going to continue to change and innovate at a pace that I don't think the world has ever seen before. And as we shift from screens largely to more wearable things, that there's adaptability and just and some of us are definitely more wired for being flexible than others. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm hopeful and excited, and I think that the future's going to be crazy and cool.
That's a perfect way to sum it up. It's a good time to be a product and a design person for sure. Well, Scott, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today, and I can't wait to continue the conversation.
Likewise. Thank you, Justin.